Wake up! Wake up! It's time to review the Niners draft. How did they do? Did they win? Did they lose? Did they choke? Did they reach? Let's go.
All right, welcome to Wake Up. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. Thanks so much for coming on by, and we got a lot to talk about here. Larry, just let me start by throwing a curveball. Here is my wish. This is what I wish would happen the Monday after the NFL draft. I think it should be mandatory that every single general manager has to, the following Monday, give us the list of the players that they had first-round grades on. Who did you really think is going to be a player? I want to see in after the fact, who did you actually have a first round grade on? And maybe it would help me better understand the 49ers way of drafting. If you told me, well, they only had like 8 first round grades in the entire draft. They only really liked 15 guys. And then everybody after that was a whatever, they're all kind of the same, because it seems like that is the approach in some of these picks. We have some reaches that border on extreme to wildly extreme. We have a couple of names that honestly, Larry, I got to be honest with you. I mean, this is the truth about Dijon Stribling. I have not been as jaw on the floor surprised about a first selection in any 49ers draft since AJ Jenkins. Stribling will be AJ Jenkins. I certainly hope he's better than that. But I mean, it's about out of nowhere first selection as you could possibly have come up with, and it addresses a position of what I think are the want, not a need, early on. So Dijon Stribling, young man, I hope you're about to be an awesome football player, because anything less than that, a lot of questions are going to be asked to John Lynch over the few years, and a lot of questions have already been asked to John Lynch about this and other things.
Welcome everybody. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. We're also brought to you by Prize Picks, the Krug Show, always presented by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. Prize Picks is super simple. You just pick more or less on player stats or game outcomes. Build your lineup. It's available in most states, including California. If you haven't checked it out yet, use code HMA, and when you play $5, you'll get $50 in lineups instantly. All right. I mean, everybody has their thoughts on this thing, good or bad. I don't think it's as simple as this was good, this was bad. As far as the Stribling pick, I don't have a problem with the Stribling pick. I really don't. When you look at the wide receiver board, Carnell Tate was the best receiver. Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson, Casey Concepcion, those guys were all gone. Omar Cooper, I think, was a safer pick than Stribling, but I think he was too low end. I was against the idea of using a first round pick on Omar Cooper. I was totally fine with them trading down. Denzel Boston is a receiver that didn't run a 40. And I told you that I don't like guys who don't do the drills. Either you can run and you run, or if you can't run, you don't run. And he didn't run, so I can only assume that he can't run. And I'm not drafting anybody at the corner or the receiver, no perimeter players, without a really defined idea of how fast they are. Speed absolutely matters. So Boston off my board. I like Jeremy Bernard quite a bit, but I liked him in round 2, and I didn't see great traits. Chris Bell I liked a lot, but when I saw him on that treadmill going into the draft, I thought, oh my God, this guy's going to fall. He looks like he's got a hiccup in his giddy up. And then there's like different guys, like Malachi Fields ran in the 4.6s. If he had run in the 4.5s, I think I would have been interested. Somebody traded up and really wanted Malachi Fields. I forget who wound up with him. New York Giants, I think. Antonio Williams, a really good route runner. So, and then there's Dijon Stribling. And after that, and I like Ted Hurst, but I thought, man, he's really raw and can't take him in the first round. So, like, of the top receivers, I'm looking at Stribling, and I have no problem. After I hadn't done the deep dive on him, I saw him in the college football playoff, but I hadn't really done the deep dive on him until the Niners picked him. But I mean, there's a lot to like there. There really is. I mean, I can see why they like him.
I get it. And I like some of his traits too. I don't dislike the player. I dislike where they drafted him. I think that they could have had a handful of other players and DeJon Stribling had they just waited to draft him. I don't know if
But that's not the intel that I got. The intel that I got was that the Eagles and a couple other teams were interested in trading up and that he wasn't going to be there the next pick that they made. But 6'8", 207 pounds, 10-inch hands, 153 in the 10-yard split, so he's plenty quick, 36-inch vertical. The 4.36 speed is good. But then when you read that he was the team captain, he's been productive at 3 different programs, he's a willing blocker, he's very accountable, he's tough. I don't have a problem with that one. I know it's not the receiver that a lot of people mock to the Niners, but this isn't some out of left field pick. This guy played for Ole Miss against Georgia in the college football playoffs and lit it up. 4 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. He had a big night from Trinidad Chambliss catching the ball. I understand why people are frustrated with the draft, but and Stribling was not a name that a lot of people knew. But if you really study that wide receiver draft board, I think you'd find that he was probably one of their better options.
I think my question is, how's he hit the field? How is he going to hit the field when we've seen over and over again young guys struggling for air when it comes to playing time? Mike Evans is playing. Christian Kirk was just signed this offseason. He's playing. Ricky Pearsall needs to be playing that DeJon Stribling role. Are you telling me that we're just giving up on Jordan Watkins? Is Demarcus Robinson asking for a trade right now because he's got to be on the field before these rookies? Jacob Cowing, is he going to turn into an actual football player ever or remain a rumor? Malik Turner is a guy that I think we both kind of think, what are we going to see from him? And they take 2 wide receivers as undrafted free agents as well. Where are the snaps coming from?
How is competition? I mean, it's a competition. First of all, where are the snaps coming from? You have no receivers at all from last year. You only have 1 returning touchdown from last year at wide receiver. There is opportunity galore. Christian Kirk had a nice little playoffs. He's never done shit in the NFL. Ricky Pearsall has never done shit in the NFL. So I don't think it's time to carve out spots for those guys. I would say throw more guys into the pool. The only guy, Mike Evans is going to be hold on a second. Yeah. Mike Evans is going to be the number 1 targeted receiver. Everybody else is the number 2 receiver job is open. There are openings here. Whoever wins the competition is going to get the reps. Get the balls. There's plenty. You have no Kittle. You have no Ayuk. You have no Jennings. You have no Debo. There's nothing but opportunity. So, there's plenty of opportunity for
there
all
was
these
nothing
guys.
but opportunity last year for Jordan Watkins. He had 2 catches, Larry.
He got hurt.
Okay.
An injury.
Jacob Cowing, nothing but opportunity.
He was injured. These guys are. This is part of the reason you have to go get more receivers. And you're right. They did add a couple of undrafted guys. I like Wesley Grimes. Wesley Grimes ran 4.35 at his pro day. Last year, Wesley Grimes ran in the 4.2s, they said. So Wesley Grimes is a big receiver from NC State. They got him after the draft, and he can really run. He'll be a factor this summer. You'll see him. Will Pauling, I think, is also going to be heard from this summer. He is a Notre Dame slot receiver.
Yep.
And he's the captain of the team, was good at Cincinnati, was good at Wisconsin. He's a Chicago kid. He was captain of the team. He's got big hands. He runs 4.4. He's got a 42-inch vertical. He had 6 touchdowns this year. He'll block. So I think they got a couple of really interesting undrafted guys. I think they got a pretty big, talented receiver, and I think they still have hope. Shanahan, it's clear, still has a lot of hope for Jacob Cowing. I don't know that I do, but those guys were drafted in the 4th round the last 2 years. Here's the bottom line, Damon. It doesn't happen in a minute. Sometimes, you have a baby. Sometimes the baby's ready to roll. Sometimes the baby is developmentally delayed, and there's all kinds of issues. It's no different with draft picks. Sometimes you got a draft pick and they're ready to roll. Put them on the field week 1. They look awesome. They're better than what you got. Sometimes it takes a year. Sometimes it takes 2. That's why the rookie receiver route is always problematic. But I don't think the Niners are willing to sit here and say Watkins and Cowan can't play, but they also can't wait for them without adding to the room.
All sounds really good. And, I do think that it's great that he is a more than willing. He's an aggressive downfield blocker, which, of course, you got to be to have any favor in Shanahan's system. It's amazing, though, that this team prioritizes blocking in their wide receivers, yet overlooks it on its own offensive line at times. Like, to me, that's just a little bit backwards. But I look at this as a team. Means nothing.
Oh, it's doing it again.
Or I getting I don't know what the hell is going on with the connection. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Can you hear me again?
We can hear you, but you definitely had that, I'm
so sorry. Yeah. McDonald's Wi-Fi. I hear you, man. I don't know what the hell's going on over here, but I can just say this. It feels like they reached on a wide receiver and a running back in this draft. And I love the running back more than anybody. Right. And I'm going to tell you, it feels like a reach.
It absolutely was undoubtedly a reach.
They reached on a wide receiver and a running back in 2025. They reached on 2 wide receivers and a running back on 2024. I mean, aside from a few good games out of Ricky, which is, bare minimum expectation from a first-round draft pick, none of these guys that they keep reaching for really contribute anything to the team. And you can say, well, he got hurt, he got buried, it didn't work out, whatever. They continue to draft players that do not play for the football team that drafted them year after year at these 2 positions. So that's why there's some skepticism here. The skepticism isn't founded in, I think John Lynch sucks. It's the skepticism is in, we can go back through these picks one by one and prove the overreach and prove the lack of contribution time and time and time again. And John Lynch, said, I believe in the consensus of my room. And that's great. I love the bravado. I want a team that is confident and can 31 other teams to be considering.
What is going on? What is going on? We just got win. I mean,
I don't know.
Unless I'm hearing it. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe nobody else got that.
I don't know.
I don't
anyway, all I can tell you, Larry, is I'm kind of stunned by the pick. I don't dislike the pick, but the value is certainly questionable. The Stribling pick, the timing of the Kaelon Black pick. I do like Romello Height an awful lot. I think that's the player I'm most excited about and is going to be a season 1 of his rookie year contributor to the 49ers. Gracen Halton out of Oklahoma. He's getting reps. He's playing. But Carver Willis and Enrique Cruz, both tackles drafted. Well, they can be competing for interior line play. I don't see either maybe as a tackle, but I'm glad that they did take a couple of offensive linemen when it comes down to it. It's.
Can I jump in for a second? I think I see a trend, and I think the trend is that they're really bad at picking players on the offensive side of the ball. It's like sometimes have you ever played 21 and somebody hits on 17 with like a low card showing and it works out. They get a 4 and they get 21 and and they do something they shouldn't do. They break a rule of blackjack and they win. And you're sitting there going, oh, my God. One, probably screwed everybody else up, took the dealer's bus card. But also, you're just sitting there going, that winning hand is going to cost that person, that gambler, forever because it's faulty reasoning and, it's junk in their game. And yet they still won. That's the Niners drafting George Kittle in 2017. You know what? We're going to do something. We're going to hit on some late, some offensive player. And now we're going to start believing our press clippings and believe that we can handicap offensive players. Look at the offensive players in this draft compared to the defensive players. The defensive players, I don't have a problem with the Romello Height pick. I agree with you. I don't have a problem with the Gracen Halton pick. I agree with you. All right, you didn't say that, but I agree with Murph. Murph liked that pick.
I like the pick too.
Jaden Duggar, Prysock. These are athletes with upside. Offensively, you went for a receiver that you probably could have gotten 20 picks later. You went for a running back at 90 that absolutely, you're telling me if you didn't pick again to the 6th round, I get it. You love Kaelon Black. You didn't pick to the 6th round. You picked again in 17 picks. You picked at 107. And you didn't think he was going to be there at 107? You picked at 127. You didn't think he was going to be there at 127? A lot of people had him in the 5th round. So I like Kaelon Black. Forget it. I love Kaelon Black. But they reached on Stribling. I thought they reached a little bit on Black. I like Stribling, but I can see the people who say, you could have got him a little lower. I really love Black, but I think they reached a little bit. And then the 2 offensive linemen, Carver Willis in the 4th round, that was I think the biggest reach. And then they liked this kid Enrique Cruz. I think he was going to be an undrafted free agent. They took him in the 5th round. That wasn't a 7th round pick. They acted like it was a 7th round flyer, and it was a 5th round pick.
Right. It's the end of our draft, so we might as well get a 7th rounder up here. But no, you're still in the middle of a draft. It seems.
And look at the faulty picks going from prior drafts. Dante Pettis, offensive player. Jalen Hurd, offensive player. Trading up for C.J. Beathard, offensive player. Joe Williams, offensive player. So many. Trey Sermon, disaster pick, offensive player. Ty Davis Price, disaster pick, offensive player. Danny Gray, awful pick, offensive player. I think what's going on here is that Kyle Shanahan is the big you-know-what in the room, and yet his feel for the kinds of players that, that he wants offensively, it goes against the grain, it goes against value, and it's not proving to be successful. Now, granted, they got Brock Purdy on the 7th in the last pick of the draft, and they got George Kittle. You know what I mean? There are a few exceptions where you'd say, yeah, God, whoa. But if you look at the theme and you study this thing and go chapter and verse all the way through their entire 10 years of drafting, I think you're going to see far more mistakes made with offensive players in the first half of the draft that Shanahan got impulsive, wanted, Lynch went and got for him, and it didn't work out. So I would say Shanahan, Lynch has taken the blame here, Damon, but I think Shanahan is the one who, even though I love Shanahan as a coach, I think I love Bill Belichick as a coach, but I don't love him as a GM. I love Mike Holmgren as a coach. Didn't love him as a GM. It's hard to be both a great coach and a great GM, and I think Shanahan should relinquish control. He should go to Cabo during the draft.
Kyle Shanahan is a brilliant head coach. The guy gets more out of less than anybody, and he has success with less. Imagine if he had more before he was trying to have success with less, basically. A better, look at how good the Niners have been with inferior drafts. Just average drafts probably have delivered a Super Bowl in the Shanahan era so far. But they have such below average drafts and continue to walk down this arrogant road of the consensus big board is irrelevant to us. Here's the thing. If it's irrelevant to you, John, it's clearly not irrelevant to the remaining teams in the NFL. The remaining teams in the NFL don't go nearly against it as dramatically as you do each and every year. So why are they having, why are you having a degree of success? Or look at it this way. They're all having pretty much a degree of success with their picks. Imagine how much more successful you would be with just better picks, guys that actually hit the field and played for you, for goodness sakes. It can't be, we're bad at drafting and we play next to an electrical substation and everybody gets hurt all the time. I mean, it's just, there's so many reasons why the Niners undo themselves. And let me just show you this. Again, I don't want to sit here and bury the front office, but there is a staggering amount of irrefutable evidence that they continue to get it wrong. And Warren Sharp is a guy that you and I both like very much. And here it is. This is teams finding value against the consensus big board. This is based on DCOE, draft capital over expectation. And if you're looking for the 49ers, they are all the way down at the bottom, all the way to the right. They are so extremely going against the grain that the grain better fucking produce. And it hasn't. It hasn't. That's for John Lynch to have so much conviction in the way he goes about doing things. He needs better results. He needs better results.
Wait a second. Calm down.
I'm calm.
But you're not making sense. They were 12-5 last year. They were 12-5 in 2023. They were 13-4 in 2022. They were 10-7 in 2021. They have 4 10-win seasons in the last 5. They have 6 10-win seasons in the last 8. I mean, they've been. I mean, if you said right now, who is the most? They've been in charge for a decade. Who's been the most successful franchise in the NFL in the last decade? People would probably say Kansas City.
Kansas City.
You want to say number 2? Maybe people would say Detroit. But guess what? The Niners are right there. They're right there. So I understand the frustration, and I understand that the status quo can't continue the status quo. Why? Because Seattle is doing better than them, and the Rams are doing better than them, and they're getting passed up in their division. But I think if you this Warren Sharp article is a good article.
I think the fact that
I think you got to look at those 16 guys that he broke down. He had 16 guys. It's actually 15, I think. 15 guys that he said the Niners reached on in their regime. If you look at that list,
but just let me jump in.
Can I just make the point? If you look at his list of 15 guys, it's overwhelmingly filled with offensive players. So Lynch has got the title. Shanahan's got the power. They're clearly not doing it well enough. That part we know. But to drop the anvil on Lynch when Shanahan's got the power and so many of the effed up picks out of the 15 or 16 that they reached for are offensive players. The ones that they reach for on defense are not even that bad. I mean, they're really not that bad. Romello Height, Darrell Luter, Robert Bia was a bad one. It was the 5th round. They said they reached on Alfred Collins. I still kind of like him. They said they reached on Siegel. That was a 5th round pick. I still kind of like him. They said they reached on Renardo and Upton Stout. I kind of like them. Jaden Duggar was just drafted. The rest of these guys, Damon, outside of Nick Martin, who I also still think can play, the screw-ups are on offense.
Look, I'm not saying that
he is. I'm not saying Lynch is the greatest. I'm not trying to make this Lynch is awesome and Shanahan's the problem. I'm just saying that I really think that Lynch I think Lynch just got raked by Warren Sharp with no mention of the fact that Shanahan has a huge say, if not final say, on all the offensive players.
Just because they're winning doesn't mean they're drafting well. And I know that sounds like they're just
because they're not drafting well doesn't mean it's Lynch. And I'm not saying Lynch is great.
Right. But look, Shanahan, I think, is overly involved in personnel decisions, and I think that the offensive reaches are on him more than on Lynch.
Just coach. Just coach.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think he's such a good coach. He can get more out of second teamers than most head coaches can get out of their starters. That is the biggest compliment I think you can give to a head coach. There is no real drop off in production, no matter who the fuck is out there. Look at the donkeys they had playing wide receiver for them last year, and they were one of the best passing teams in all of football. And that's really amazing. And I think that their success is in spite of their roster, not because of their roster.
I agree.
And this is, look, I just want to share from what Warren Sharp said. The 49ers are at drafting the worst in the NFL over the last 4 years. I can only imagine what Shanahan would do with a proper general manager drafting these players. We don't know what this team could be if they drafted better. We only know what they are when they reach more than any other team over the last 4 years combined. Lynch can claim he knows better than the wisdom of the crowds, but the data says he doesn't. It shows that he doesn't. The fact that they win games doesn't mean that they're drafting right. And, he says, we've got consensus in the building. The bravado in that response seems to indicate that Lynch feels he's not reaching and is drafting well. The great thing about something like the draft is we can actually measure his track record. Lynch's gut leads them to a player that is overdrafted and busts out far more early than it does success. And this is just, again, this is not an opinion. This is statistics, stats.
But once again, he's parking his car at the corner of John and Lynch, and he really should be parking it on the corner of Lynch and Shanahan. Shanahan has a lot of say.
Of course.
I mean, let me ask you this. I can read horrible draft lists from John Schneider during the Pete Carroll era. I could bust it out right now. I could list all kinds of shitty drafts that John Schneider had.
Got failures.
No. I'm talking about whole drafts that were horrible. But it was still John Schneider. Why? What's the difference? Pete Carroll hired John Schneider. Pete Carroll had a lot of say in the drafts. So suddenly Pete Carroll goes away, and now John Schneider's drafting all kinds of good guys. I'm not saying that Lynch is a great GM. I'm not. In fact, I personally think that if he was a great GM, it would be against the odds, right? He's already had a Hall of Fame career as a player. He's already a top-tier broadcaster. What are the odds that John Lynch is so talented that he's both an all-world safety, a very good broadcaster, and as good a GM as the best GMs in football? I mean, come on. I mean, it would be a story if he was the best GM. So I think John is better as the face of the franchise, and I think Kyle as president. I think Kyle is better as a coach. And if Jed were really on it, he would make the adjustments and force the adjustments and pay everybody to make it right. Pay Shanahan a few more bucks if he's going to be bent that he doesn't get to pick the players. Pay John a few more bucks. The league is nothing but money. You've got billions of dollars. It's going up every year by billions of dollars. Pay these guys because they're really, really good, and go find a young, sharp GM who's a director of college scouting, who's not a football player, not, some tanned up guy. He's just some pasty guy in a room who's just great at picking players. Howie Roseman is a skinny, nothing guy. He never played any football. You can tell that by looking at him. Elliot Wolf never played any football, and he probably can't even hold a football. But guess what? These guys are good GMs. So go get yourself a real GM. Go and stop having Shanahan do everything. And the thing is, are you going to lose Shanahan if you try to make this? I mean, Jed's going to have to make this all work. I don't think you can just walk up to Kyle and be like, yeah, we're stripping you of draft control. He's going to be like, get me out of here. I want out.
Let me return to this, that the minute the draft is over, every single starting point becomes irrelevant. Who are you when your cleats are on the field? Who are you when your cleats are on the field? And if these guys come and they turn into real players, it will be the first batch of overreaches that really produce for the San Francisco 49ers. It feels like they're in real time giving up on former draft picks with their new crop of draft picks. Jordan Watkins, how is he on the field? Doesn't he need more playing time, not less? You draft a wide receiver that instantly equals less opportunity for him.
Yeah, we did competition. You're not giving. Why would you give? You're not giving anybody anything. You're gonna draft as much competition as possible, and they're gonna compete for it this summer. I mean, competition is what this country was founded on. Competition is a good thing. I mean, what are you supposed to do? So you got a receiver, you draft him, you still like him. He didn't fulfill his potential in year one. What are you supposed to do? Just clear out the wide receiver spot and say, well, you know what? We drafted this guy, and damn, we're going to make it fit. No, you got to keep drafting guys. You got to keep taking swings, and you got to keep hitting. I mean, that to me is a no-brainer. I think you got to keep
dribbling a Pro Bowler 3 years from now.
Who knows? I'll say this: I love the traits. You're talking about a guy with size who did it in the SEC, who did it in the college football playoffs, who's got gigantic hands, 4.36 speed, and likes to block.
Got into the end zone an awful lot in his college career. Did it in a lot of different places. I like him. Imagine how much more you would have liked this team with a dominant, no doubt about it, day one starting left guard or a safety that is to be reckoned with. And then you get the player that you really want 3 rounds later.
I'll say this. I did not like what they did or didn't do this offseason on the offensive line. Okay. They needed so badly to invest in some strength in the interior. And instead, they're so fascinated by mobility that they went for a couple of guys who have great mobility. And then they draft 3 backup offensive linemen. And it just reeks of, we don't know which of these guys is going to do it. We're just going to throw a bunch of shit against the wall and see what sticks. And people would say, well, that sounds negative. Yeah, but you know what? There's only 9 offensive linemen on a team. You have 5 starters and 3 or 4 backups, 8 or 9 offensive linemen. You've signed or you've used 2 draft picks and 3 free. You've brought in 5 offensive linemen, none of which are slated to start. So now you have 5 backup offensive linemen. It just reeks of, you know what? I don't know. We're just going to kind of throw it all together and see if Forster can make it all work.
I mean,
you're
telling me that Robert Jones is their starting left guard? If Robert Jones is their starting left guard, then okay, great. If Brent Toth is going to be a starting center or guard, okay, great. But I do we believe in that? Do we think that that's going to happen?
I'm just saying, like, they've brought in 5. You use 2 draft picks on offensive linemen and 3 free agents. I guarantee you all 5 won't make the team. So now what? You're either cutting guys you just signed as free agents, which doesn't look good, or you're cutting guys you just drafted top 5 round picks with.
Doesn't look good either.
That looks bad too. So it's like they needed a tight end in the worst way. Now they got Dinkins after the draft. I like him. They saved themselves with a really strong undrafted free agent class that includes James Thompson.
We talk about Kamara,
Dinkins.
Man,
they had some good players there, but I mean, come on, man.
Larry, I went Peach Bowl for you today. I brought out the Peach Bowl t-shirt because I'm so excited that they did add Kamara. This guy is 10 sacks at Indiana in his last 2 years. He was such a part of that culture turnaround. He's on the team. I'm telling you right now, he's making this football team. He is going to be here's the thing. He's going to be what I think Romello Height might also be. And I do like Romello Height. I do. He is so twitchy. He is lean. He runs at 45-degree angles around corners. They're calling him Gumby already. I got excited about him. I brought him up. I think, on Friday before the draft with you is, here, let me add one more player to the mix that I'd like to see the 49ers come away with. And I thought that they could come away with him with one of their 4 picks in the 4th round at the time. He went 70. They took him at 70. And if you're saying, well, the board played that way and they started rocketing up the board, I don't have a problem with that. But Kaelon Black, again, a guy who I absolutely love, went 2 rounds too high. I mean, if you're going to ignore the consensus big board, which they clearly are, that is the Niners operating procedure. We see what the whole world thinks of these players, and we're going to ignore it. That means you are not paying attention to what the game of the draft is. The draft is its own game within a game, and you got to know when to strike, when to move back, when to get aggressive, and it just feels like that they're all turned around with what they believe. They don't even factor in what is the general belief in the rest of the NFL, and there's no anticipation as to what might be happening around them. Sometimes you're going to hold out on a player and someone's going to take the cherry right off the top of your sundae right before your pick. And I do think that there might have been a couple of guards that they might have drafted, but then Houston beat them to both, right? And I don't know, man. Dude, Bud Clark going to Seattle too also just rubbed me the wrong way, Larry.
Well, the whole thing. I mean, you've got a situation where Seattle had 4 picks coming into the draft, and they somehow wind up with Jadarian Price, Bud Clark, Bo Stevens, Devin Eastern in the 7th round, who's a really good pick from Minnesota. Emmanuel Henderson from Kansas is a really fast receiver. I mean, I don't know about Julian Neal. He's local. Michael Dansby. I don't know about a couple of their guys, but I mean, they had 4 picks and then they wound up with 8 picks and they still got Jadarian Clark and Bud Clark and Jadarian Price and Devin Eastern. So yeah.
And hey, we get to keep a good track on Chase Basantes because he's going to be an Arizona Cardinal. Yeah, I'm just going to say right now, you saw John Lynch smiling ear to ear when he was asked about the Rams drafting the quarterback, right? Drafting Ty Simpson. And he's smiling ear to ear. In other words, like, oh, man, I think they reached. If at least Ty Simpson was rumored to go into the 1st round if some team valued him there. There was no rumor of having to spend pick number 33 on DeJon Stribling. If Ty Simpson was a reach, DeJon Stribling might be the single biggest reach in the entire draft.
He wasn't even the biggest reach in the Niner draft.
So, let's see. Let's see what he turns into. But there's no way. There's going to be absolutely no way to watch his career and not be measuring it directly against Boston and against Omar Cooper Jr. Again, if you wanted a wide receiver, right there at 30, you were sitting, and then you traded back with the Jets, you could have had Omar Cooper Jr. Did they even have a 30 visit with Stribling? Did they even really talk to him? Because it seems like they didn't have much communication. So
first of all, the 30 visit, I mean, people make so much over that.
The guy was drafted in Hawaii.
They 30 visit.
Like, I'm in Hawaii.
30 visit is not. I mean, everybody treats it different, but the 30 visit is not like the best 30 players that you on your board. It's just 30 guys you have questions about. And sometimes it's you have questions about them. Sometimes it's you have a question about somebody else. So the 30 visit thing, I mean, obviously they did their due diligence. Obviously they really like the player. I mean, I don't have a problem with Stribling. I really don't. I think the Stribling pick is going to be fine. And if you want to compare him to the receivers that went in and around him, of course. I mean, that's totally fair and totally appropriate.
Will Stribling have?
But back to John Lynch. You brought up the thing about Ty Simpson. He was smiling about Ty Simpson because the Rams had a top half of the 1st round pick, and they could have used it on a player that would have been, made the Niners' life complicated. Instead, they signaled the end of the career of their Hall of Fame quarterback and took a guy that is likely never going to play this year. And it could have been Mekhi Lemon. It could have been Kenyon Sadiq. It could have been somebody that was going to be a major challenge for the Niners to defend. So I think they were just happy that they took a team in their division took a player that isn't going to help them this year. But yeah, no, I mean, whatever. I mean, I don't have a problem with them smiling at Ty Simpson. I have a bigger problem with them, making so many mistakes on offense and investing draft capital in offensive linemen when you're just going to take guys that nobody else really wants anyway, that are going to be there at the end. I mean, you could have gotten Carver Willis later. I don't believe for a second that Enrique Cruz was not going to be there, or even that I don't even see what Enrique Cruz does well. I mean, I really don't. He's got great athleticism. He can jump 36 inches, but I looked at his film. He doesn't look like a tackle to me. He doesn't have a set like a tackle at all. He looks like a guard. So what are we talking about?
2 tackles to maybe play interior. They drafted, look at it this way. Ephesians Prysock, which sounds like a name right out of a Key and Peele sketch, right? I mean, that's a hell of a name that young man has.
Jackson, Flaxen, Waxen, Jackson.
Exactly. Is he even really a corner? And how's he getting on the field with the corners that they signed? Is he going to be looked at as safety? Is Jaden Duggar going to be looked at as someone who can be outside linebacker-ish type of player? How much creative freedom are they going to give these guys defensively to get on the field? I don't know how many snaps they're actually going to get out of their rookie class. And I think that Kaelon Black is someone who should get 150 carries in his rookie year easily, with all the pressure you're trying to take off of Christian McCaffrey. Will he even get 100? Will he even get 80? Will he even get 50? Will he? I mean, I really mean it. If you told me that DeJon Stribling didn't have a target until week 8 and didn't have a catch till week 12, I'd believe you. I'd believe you. So I'm stunned, man. Mike Evans didn't come here to do anything other than play all the time. And you signed Christian Kirk, and you got Ricky Pearsall, who every minute he's healthy, he has to be out in patterns. You got to figure out what you got in him. Jordan Watkins, 2 catches last year. You know, I understand he sprained his ankle early in training camp. 2 catches? That must have been one fucking sprained ankle. I mean,
I'm so done with this conversation. I can't even tell you how done I am with this whole conversation, because it's a ridiculous conversation. It's like, so Jordan Watkins sucks, and because he can't get on the field, but Ricky Pearsall needs more opportunities, and he's
at
great.
least
if I say Ricky Pearsall's not good, I'm a bad guy. But everybody, it's like, I'm totally dissatisfied with Ricky Pearsall. Everybody else seems to be super satisfied, but then it's like, you know, all these other guys better be freaking great. How about this? If Ricky Pearsall had been worth it, they wouldn't have even drafted DeShaun Stribling. The Niners' biggest problem is that they keep going for all these offensive players because Shanahan has his favorites, and then they don't work out, and they wind up drafting again and again and repeating. Yeah, they've got needs that they haven't filled, and they wanted a defensive line, and here comes Solomon Thomas, didn't work. Here comes Javon Kinlaw, didn't work. So here comes Drake Jackson, didn't work. So here comes Robert Beal, didn't work. You know, it's like the Niners' biggest problem is they have had to redraft over and over and over again. Yeah, I mean, if Jed is looking at this, the Niners have been hugely successful, okay? Hugely successful. But the question that has to be asked is, are they hugely successful because of their drafting, or have they been hugely successful in spite of their drafting?
I think the
answer is they're successful because Shanahan is a very good coach, and he's assembled a top-tier coaching staff. 1. 2, they've had some amazing one-sided trades for Hall of Fame players like Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey, and they've made some good trades at the deadline. 2. 3, they've crushed some day 3 picks in a way that nobody ever could have predicted. Fred Warner, George Kittle, Dima Lenore, Brock Purdy, Juwan Jennings, and some undrafted guys, the Azeez Al-Shairs. They've been amazing on day 3. They've made a couple of really, really great trades, and they have a good coaching staff. Other than that, that is camouflaging the fact that they are not good at drafting, largely inefficient across the board. We're seeing repeated draft picks in the same spots because of failures in previous spots, where they're claiming that they do all kinds of self-scout and self-evaluation. Well, if they're doing the self-scouting and self-evaluation, why aren't they firing people that are failing and hiring new people? You know, I'm evaluating myself. Great, but you're not doing anything about the evaluation once you're evaluating it. My conclusion is this. Everybody needs to do what they're good at, and only what they're good at. Okay? So Grant is an awesome troll. Let him troll, you know? And Shanahan's an awesome coach. Let him coach. And Lynch is an awesome face of the franchise. Let him be the face of the franchise. What they need is somebody who's not internal, somebody who's not under the thumb of Shanahan, somebody who's not under the thumb of Lynch, somebody who has their own thoughts, totally independent, and enough strength, and give them the power to draft the team. Let Shanahan, if Shanahan wants to tell these guys chapter and verse of everything he wants, from finger length to hair length to whatever, fine. But get out of the draft room. Lynch, you want to be there and, lead the franchise and, talk, represent us at the league meetings and, speak on our behalf. Great. Once again, let's get somebody. Elliot Wolf he's not a broadcaster, and Elliot Wolf is never going to be a good strong safety, but he's a good GM. Howie Roseman can't catch a pass, probably can't tie his shoes, but he's a good GM. Let's start getting guys and having them do only what they're good at. And that's a Jed York decision. He's going to have to be the one that carries that out. But to me, if they paid me and said, Krug, you love the Niners, you want the Niners to be successful, nobody would ever question your dedication to wanting the Niners to be good. So we know you're coming from a good place. What do you want? I want Kyle to coach. I want John to be the president. And I want a nerdy general manager, and I want that guy to have the final say on the roster.
Well, and I just think there needs to be, the bill has to hit the table for all the bad purchases, right? And that's what draft picks really are. We're buying this guy ahead of everyone else. We're going to market to get this guy. Like whoever.
Here's the question,
whoever really talked the 49ers into drafting Trey Lance, you should be like, who did that? You're out of the process. It should just be that simple. Whose instincts brought you to this player? At what point will the decisions that Lynch is making draft after draft after draft, and on the day that they don't make a lot of sense, and then in the subsequent seasons, the production don't make a lot of sense? At what point will he be held account? Is there's nobody in that room who said at 33, DeJon Stribling, really?
Well,
really?
First of all, who's
right here and this guy later?
Who's getting credit for Kittle? Who actually picked Purdy? Who actually picked, Alshire as an undrafted guy? Who picked these guys?
Was it Adam Peters?
Are the same people that are picking at the beginning of the draft signing these really good undrafted free agents after the draft? How is it that you can get Mikhail Kamara, James Thompson, Grimes, and some really interesting players after the draft, but you're reaching like a mother in the draft so you can get Kyle's favorites or Firster's favorites? Firster's favorites should be undrafted players, not fifth-round picks. And if they're fifth-round picks, they should be starting or playing, not just, backing up. So I don't know. I'll just say this. The draft is their drafting has been inefficient, but once again, it's like this. On one hand, we're here to criticize because they've reached a lot. On another hand, they've really unearthed some amazing players. How many NFL teams in the last decade have drafted Warner, Kittle, Lenore, Purdy, Jennings, and Alshire all on day 3 or after the draft? I mean, that's six. That's 6 major players, a couple of maybe Hall of Famers, and this is all on day 3. So you got to love what, on some level, somebody evaluated something on day 3, but is it the same people? I get the sense that it's almost they have so many people that let's take this and let's pick that. Chris Firster likes this lineman. Chris Kasarik likes that guy. Brian Greasy like this guy, Chris Kiffin like that guy. It's like, okay, but there's huge inconsistencies. And the bottom line is, I think the 49ers, I think Kyle Shanahan's a really good coach. I think the 49ers would have won a Super Bowl by now if they had just drafted better.
Look
but
at
I don't absolve him of the blame, because I'm really convinced that Dante Pettis, CJ Beathard, Jalen Hurd, all these offensive donkey picks, I think are Kyle Shanahan wanting these players. I think there's some examples, some proof of that as well. So I that's the one thing that my only complaint about the Warren Sharp article, and he started it with an exchange between Grant and Lynch. So he turned it into a Lynch thing. And I get it. The general manager is the bottom line, and he's got to have the, you're going to hold the general manager's feet to the fire on the draft. But that to me is ignorant of the setup. And the setup was that Kyle Kyle came first. Kyle's making the big bucks. Kyle is the Pete Carroll, and John Lynch is the John Schneider who was hired by Pete Carroll. You know what I mean? He was hired by Kyle Shanahan. So to not, and many of the picks that they've effed up on are offensive picks that Kyle probably said, I want. So, you know, I think Kyle hit on the Kittle one early, and now it's like he thinks, you know, he's got a great eye for it. And I think it's proven that it's fallible over time.
The 49ers will probably have a pretty good football season coming up. Will this draft class contribute to it? That's my major question. I don't think it's odd to come out of a draft without a single starter. I don't think the 49ers have a single starter drafted in this draft. Now, maybe they become that. Maybe they develop into that. Maybe due to injury, we see guys get promoted to that. But again, you know, DeJean Stribling better show up to training camp. And everyone, as we're down there watching, we all better be picking our jaws up off the turf going, holy shit, this guy, oh my God. And if we're not doing that early, does he even play early? You know, is he a special teamer? Did they just draft with their first pick in this last draft a special teamer? I don't know. Again, I love Kaelon Black. We'll see if he's actually being used. I think Gracen Halton probably has, of all the players, the most amount of snaps coming to him this year. And what does that say about last year's draft where they took 2 defensive tackles, and this offseason where they traded a pick for a defensive tackle? It just feels like they keep on, for a team with many needs, they have to keep readdressing too many mistakes.
By the way, this back that nobody loves, everybody hates, Kaelon Black. You guys gonna want.
Don't hate him. You're gonna love him. You're gonna love this guy.
Yeah, let me show you this one thing. This is unbelievable. Lombardi had this clip up, and this I thought was a great clip because this really does show what Kaelon Black is. I turned on the Senior Bowl, and this is what this guy is. He moves the pile. he moves the pile. All the guy does is move the pile.
He's one of the strongest running backs you could have drafted. This guy, he's a muscle.
What he does. I mean, you know, he doesn't come down. He's got tremendous fight. So, like, you know, he's Trey Sermon. No. I get it. They reached. They should have taken this guy in the 5th round. They should have waited. They should have had more confidence. I mean, I guess my biggest argument would be like in this room full of all these draft kings, right? You got Tariq Ahmad, you got R.J. Gillen, you got Josh Williams. They're all grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding. You guys thought that Kaelon Black was going to be gone before you picked at the top of the 4th round? A lot of the mocks that I was looking at had him in the 5th round, 6th round, or undrafted. And I was like, oh, God. But they definitely, I mean, I love the player. You love the player. I understand their conviction on the player and wanting the player. But you can't take Kaelon Black in the 3rd round. I mean, I think he's going to be good. Don't get me wrong. We got to separate. But that was such the reach. And it was like, God. And it was the only reason I didn't just freak out at the time because I love Kaelon Black. And you and I have been talking about, I said to you, Damon, there's good players. There's great players. And then there are culture players and guys who change your culture the day they walk in the room. And Brock Purdy is kind of a culture player, right? But I also think Kaelon Black is a culture player. So, you know, and Mikhail Kamara, by the way, I did an interview with CJ West. And I asked him late in the year, I said, hey, CJ, draft's coming up next year, and your Indiana team is freaking loaded. I go, who is the guy or two that you'd want off that team? When he's like, oh, man, I got to pick just one, you know. And he goes, you know, he said Kamara, Pons, and Black. The Niners got 2 of them.
They did get 2 of them. Go Hoosiers. Hoosiers West. Larry, we have a ton of supers. Let's tell everyone about Prize Picks, and then let's get into these supers.
Yeah, we're not going to do a Prize Picks lineup because we've got to put more cash in our Prize Picks account. But
Let me tell you, I'm all done taking Willie Adames or Rafael Devers to even get singles. I mean, these guys, oh, Jesus, what the Giants are paying the top of their lineup to do almost nothing for them is amazing, but that's another video, I guess.
Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app. The reason I like it, it's simple. You're just picking more or less on player stats or even game outcomes, building your lineup, and you're in. No complicated stuff. Just what you think is going to happen in the game. Use code HMA. Play $5, get $50 instantly in lineups instantly. Link is in the description. And we will not do a lineup today, but thank you to Prize Picks. Also, thank you to Habas Law, habaslaw.com on the web. Great sponsor of the Krug Show. We love them. They do an amazing job. They will fight to make it right when everything's on the line. Choose the team that understands that, and that's Habas Law. Habaslaw.com on the web. Also, when I dine in Sacramento, I go to alamarmarina.net. They're at 5999 Garden Highway. The Alomar Marina is awesome, voted Sacramento's favorite 14 times. Float while you dine on the Sacramento River. And also, last but certainly not least, the great David Corral and my good friends at Novato Chevrolet. The only place I will buy a Chevrolet is Novato Chevrolet, Bay Area's EV headquarters. Over $3 million in used cars, family-owned for over 50 years, voted top car dealership by Carfax. When I buy a car from Chevrolet, I buy it from Novato Chevrolet. Go see David Corral. He will give you a screaming deal. All right.
Hey, when I buy a sandwich, I buy it from Ike's at Ike. So you go ahead and get your sandwich from Ike's. There you go. Larry, let's hop into these supers. There are a lot.
I know. I don't know. We've got 29 supers. All right, we got this one.
Masses.
Joseph Ernberg. I did two plates and a 5 the other day. So what's that? It's 225. That's 235. Ernberg, 235. All right, whatever. Here we go. Ernberg. He says, I'm expecting 800 yards minimum from Stribling. I do understand why people are frustrated with Stribling. When I heard that pick, I went like this. What? Really? Yeah. Stribling? But when you really watch the film, what's not to like? The guy played in the SEC. The guy played in the college football playoffs. He dominated the college football playoffs. He's got 4.3 speed, 10-inch hands, and he blocks. I mean,
let me say this, though. He runs. He doesn't have a route tree. He's not a crisp route runner. He does all sorts of little things that I could see take him off the field in Kyle Shanahan's eyes. You know, he doesn't cut his routes off. He rounds off the top of his routes. I mean, I don't know.
He's a rookie. This is why I don't like rookie receivers. I would have rather, Damon, after they had traded back, I would have rather them traded that pick to Jacksonville if they could have gotten like a Brian Thomas Jr. because I don't like rookie receivers. But as far as I hear what you're saying, but
I can't believe that Lynch didn't figure out a way to package. You know, if you're trading D Winters, how are you not figuring out a way to package Brandon Ayuk along with that? How is Brandon Ayuk still on this team? How have you not been able to move him in any way, shape, or form? You can't get anybody to bite. You can't package him with a pick. You couldn't move him around. There's no market for him at all. That's nuts. That's nuts.
Why? Why is that nuts?
Because he's a pretty good player. He's pretty good player.
He's hurt with a bloated contract that he signed before he got hurt. He suffered a devastating injury and missed a whole year. Not to mention he's acted really, done some crazy shit. And you'd have to trade for that contract.
The contract is brutal. There's no doubt. But
people are just waiting for
release him, right? Just release him then. Get over it. Just move on.
Damon, it's, you're joking, right? We talked about this 3 times in the last 3 shows. If they cut him before June 1st, the cap dead hit rolls all into this year. If they cut him after June 1st, they can split that cap hit between this year and next year. They're going to cut him or move him, but it's going to be a post June 1st.
Do you think
June 1st is the key date? I'll say this. If they hold him beyond June 1st, then it's like, whoa, it's obviously they're just being
a guy with a June 1st designation.
But they're not going to cut him. They're going to wait until the cut down. I don't think they're going to cut him on June 1st. I think he's going to be on the team. I think they're going to walk him I'll make a prediction on this. The Niners, He wants to go to Washington. The Niners know he wants to go to Washington. The Niners don't want him to go to Washington. Washington doesn't want to give the Niners anything. I think what's going to happen, and this is just my prediction, is that the Niners are going to dig in. The Commanders are going to dig in. But then the Commanders are going to sit there and go, you know what? Fine, we'll give you Luke McCaffrey. I really believe that's going to happen. Why? Because the Commanders drafted another receiver this weekend, pretty high. And there's no room on this roster for Brandon Ayuk, let alone Luke McCaffrey. And I think as we get closer to the cut down, I think they'll know that Luke McCaffrey's not going to make the team. And I think the Niners, my guess is it'll be a McCaffrey for Ayuk thing right at the cut down or in camp.
Commanders took Antonio Williams from Clemson.
Yeah. Who's a really good route runner. Would have been nice to have him, by the way.
Omar Cooper Jr. is an incredible route runner, and you could have just drafted him at 30.
Who?
Boom. There he is. Omar Cooper Jr.
Yeah. I love Omar Cooper Jr. And funny, I went to Lenardi's to get some stuff to barbecue on Sunday, and the butcher's like, Krug, why didn't they go Omar Cooper Jr.? And I'm like, he would have been the safest pick for sure. Yeah, I mean, it is inconsistent. It seems that they would go with a really safe running back from Indiana who has all these traits, but then you don't want the really safe receiver from Indiana who has the same traits. There's a huge swaths of inconsistency, but they obviously like Stribling. David Esger says, it's so funny to hear Lynch say, we let the draft come to us. Translation, we waited our turn to pick, and if our guy was still on the board, we jumped to grab him. No, you cannot say that, John, that you let the draft come to you. You traded back and then reached. You traded back and then reached. That was the consistent theme in this draft. David Esger says it's all about the opportunity cost. Niners deprive themselves of bites at the apple by jumping the board. I like Black. And Dunker a hell of a lot better. They could have had both. Bingo.
Exactly.
Yeah,
If you like Stribling, great. I guess I do too. Imagine Stribling and the guard that you need to play next to Trent. Imagine Stribling and one more premium edge rusher or defensive tackle. How about a safety? How about that corner? And the wide receiver that you want. It was all there for you, and you left something on the table to go get something that you could have probably taken off the table 2 rounds later.
All I would say in defense of the Niners is this. People talk about, the draft and this and that, and they always compare all these drafts. They never, ever tell you what the team had. It's like, I've seen teams get A's for their draft. They had 2 number 1 picks. And they had a pick in the top 10. The 49ers didn't have a top 10 pick. They had the 27th pick in round 1, and they traded their 3rd round pick for Osa Odigizua. So Osa Odigizua is a part of this draft class. To me, when you've added in Osa Odigizua and what the Niners got in the undrafted class, I think this is going to be okay, because I think some of those prospects are pretty decent. But I think this guy's right. I mean, the reaching for the players means that you've lost out. Like, you needed Jennings Dunker to plug in as a starter at left guard. You didn't get him, and now you're talking about Connor Colby. You're going to play Connor Colby there? That's their plan. David Esger, let's be honest, it was draft malpractice.
Look, we'll have to come out and see. Well, I mean, it
wasn't efficient. They weren't efficient in the draft.
And look, we can't judge any of these players now. We can only judge draft position. And I think the entire jury has returned. They were drafted at odd positions. To justify these draft picks, they're going to have to get on the field and kick some ass. And if they don't, the question then turns to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and says, guys, are you ever going to honestly reevaluate the way you're doing things? And I don't know if they will.
It's interesting. Lombardi had a quote up here, or Lombardi had a thing where he's saying that the Niners draft class in some rankings, it's like, we can always find something, stats lie and liars use statistics, right? You can always find a stat that proves your point, but he's basically saying that that there is. Let me see if I can show this to you guys. There is a chart out there.
Right. The most athletic. This team is brimming with athletic draft picks.
Yeah, well, it was a chart that blended. God, I thought I retweeted it. I can't find it now. But basically, it was a chart that that measured draft, college production, and athleticism. And the Niners were the only team to draft, a bunch of players who both were really high in both athleticism and collegiate production. And Damon, I haven't studied this list, but I got to be honest. I really believe that that's how you become a great drafting team, is when you draft guys that are great athletes who also had great collegiate production. So I'll study that a little bit more, but that is an angle. I mean, that absolutely is an angle. That if you can find great athletes who also had great collegiate production, that's a good mix. That's a good blend, let's just say. I have to look more into that, but once again, I mean, the reaches are the defining characteristic here. Wait a second. I think I missed one here. I don't want to miss any. I've missed some the last couple of days. David Esger, you guys both do a great job. Got to give Grant some credit for shining a light on this too. He asked a tough question, man. He asked a tough question. And how he asked it, I mean, that's Grant's style. But it's a tough question. I mean, here's the thing about this. Okay, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I can't believe Grant asked that," and they're mad at Grant, or they're turning on Grant, and they're like, "Oh, Grant, this and that." Grant has to ask that question in that setting because the 49ers don't give us access to Lynch and Shanahan in a better setting. So if you didn't like that question because you thought it put John Lynch on the spot in that setting, blame the Niner PR. Because they could have had another setting where they allowed the media to ask questions to Lynch and Shanahan, but they don't want to give that session. And so they give just a media session for the world to see. And guess what happens? I did it myself. In a presser after the NFC Championship game a couple years ago, where I asked Kyle Shanahan about guys who were Cadillacing it that I saw on film. I wanted to ask him that question in the hallway. I wanted to ask John Lynch that question in the hallway. Did I get a chance to go one-on-one and ask that question in the hallway? No. So guess what? Here's the presser. I waited for everybody to ask the question. Nobody asked the question. So here I am asking the question. And it wasn't my choice. It wasn't my druthers. I would rather ask a super crushing question in a face-to-face situation where I can get a real answer. It kind of feels like you're ambushed when you're asked that question on camera in a presser that's being carried nationwide on the NFL Network. But if PR staff is only going to allow for this brief encounter, then Grant had no choice but to ask that question in that setting. And he did it, and he did it well.
All I can tell you is that press conferences are not designed to be comfortable. They shouldn't be a moment of seeking comfort, and they shouldn't be unprofessional and confrontational all the time either. I think maybe Grant brings a little bit too much confrontation to every single day that he covers the Niners, but he's obviously incredibly successful. He's been wildly successful in this space. And of all the journalistic moments he's offered up, that was among his best. I salute Grant on asking that tough of a question. There aren't a lot of people in that room who would or did.
Not a lot. There's nobody who would.
Yeah.
Nobody did. And nobody does. Joseph Ernberg says Stribling will be a stub a toe and disappear guaranteed. God, I hope you're wrong. Dimitrov says they didn't reach for O-line enough in day one and day two. Unfortunately, the last couple of years, imagine running Shanahan's system and O-line ain't a priority. What the fuck?
It's crazy to me that they prioritize a wide receiver who blocks well, and that's really important to them. But somebody whose primary job it is to block all the time is on their list of last things we need to address over and over and over again. They have sought a level of comfort in the middle of their offensive line production that they're clearly happy with. They're fine as long as their offensive line is somewhere between 15th and 20th best in all of football. Imagine if it were better. It's the only unit on a football field that can improve every other unit on the field. It's the only unit whose job it is to protect your multi-million-dollar quarterback investment and open up holes for your future Hall of Fame running back. And they just refuse to prioritize something that is so fundamental to success in football, and I think is the number one reason why they do not have a Super Bowl delivered. The number one reason is because their offensive line is good, but not good enough. They can win with good, but not good enough wide receivers, good, but not good enough running backs, good, but not good enough defensive players here and there. But I don't think you get to win with good, but not good enough offensive line. And look at the recent Super Bowl champions and how dominant their offensive lines have been.
Look at their inability to block. I mean, they had a 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1 against Seattle, and they didn't run up the middle. Why?
Because they can't.
Because you're not strong enough to block Brian Murphy and Leonard Williams, and you're still not. You're still not. You know, you've got Connor Colby, Dom Pooney, and Brendel inside, and those guys, man, after this draft, those guys better step it up, because the Niners, in my opinion, needed major strength infusion in the interior, and instead they went for a couple of mobile offensive linemen that really don't have the kind of power to blow you out of the hole.
And that's the thing. That's great. That, you know, they performed well in outside zone blocking schemes. That's great. Scheme is important, but so is the ability to do it. You know, the last thing I want to hear about the offensive linemen that you draft is these guys don't have enough sand in their pants to really hold their position. Like, that's not good. And that's it. So anyways, by the way, Dale is asking, are Damon Supers not coming through? No, they are coming through. We got plenty coming up right here.
We got a bunch here. We got 32. We're rolling through them. Do Noodle. What do you think of their process? First pick, consensus. Second pick, John. Third pick, Kyle. Remaining picks, position coaches. First of all, I don't know that that's their process. You're kind of announcing that.
Yeah, if consensus was the first pick, we would not be talking about Dijon Stribling this morning.
I don't think that's true at all. I mean, who says who? I mean, well, consensus, we're not talking about the draft consensus. We're talking about their consensus. I believe they had a consensus on who they liked. I don't doubt that. But it didn't, you're saying that they didn't go with the consensus. They don't go with the consensus.
Did they have a first round grade on Stribling?
I don't know. They didn't take him in the first
No, but they did. But they took him one spot removed from the first round. So, he's essentially a first rounder.
Also, they only had 16 or 20, first round grades. I mean, that was the other thing too. They didn't want to tell us in the past who their gold helmet designations were, because they thought it was too revealing or too this or that. But then they did tell us that Stribling was one of their gold helmet designation guys. So, it's like they bust that out when they need more ammo to kind of defend.
Then he better be challenging Mike Evans for that starting position day one.
I actually think Stribling's going to be pretty good. I really do, because he was good in the SEC this year. But you know what? Watkins was good in the SEC last year, and rookie receivers don't do a whole lot. This is why I didn't want a rookie receiver.
Yeah. Jordan Watkins went to Mississippi.
Want any of the rookie receivers? I wanted them to trade for Jordan Addison or Brian Thomas, or get a veteran receiver. Boxing fan times 4. Personal relationships over great players. Or just like, it's just a little too everywhere. It's like, why do the Niners, they have no consistency? Because they don't have a consistent approach. It's not like one man's vision. It's like, it's the whole organization, and it's a little bit here and a little bit there. But it's like the conductor in this case, John Lynch, has got to know when to go to the drums and when to go to the brass, and when, he's conducting this symphony, and he's got to know when to go to what instruments. And, maybe he can hit it right, but it just seems like a very much of a high wire act.
You know who runs the Seattle Seahawks draft? John Schneider. That's it. One voice, one vision. You know who does it for the Eagles? Howie Roseman. One voice, one vision.
I mean, everybody's got lieutenants and that kind of thing, but come on, you got there's huge inconsistency with the Niners picks, and I think they've deferred to Shanahan through a lot of those. I mean, that's the most, if I was John Lynch, I think probably the most, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I sense a little frostiness between Lynch and Shanahan. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just, that seems that they seem a little frosty. But either way, if I was John Lynch, I'm reading that Warren Sharp article, and I know that, Kyle Shanahan, sat right next to me in a lot of those drafts and said, John, I got to have Jacob Cowing. Okay, we'll get him. John, I've got to have Isaac Guerrero. Okay, we'll get him. John, I've got to have Cam Latu. Okay, we'll get him. John, I've got to have Jake Moody. And if you were John and you were, trying to make your head coach and boss happy, and now you're getting raked and he's, basically above the fray, I would be a little pissed off. But
I mean, if you got indefinite job security, if no amount of not getting this draft right, he's got like an 80% failure rate on his draft picks, and we're going over a decade. This is no small sample size at all. I just had a person who loves this show and watches it send me a depth chart. He's like, every single player in red here is a guy who didn't sign a second contract or is out of the league right now. And it's almost the majority of every single player that the 49ers have drafted.
Well, what happens too is that these things you draft in the present, but you feel the impact over the next 2 or 3 years. And so what's going on right now? Well, they didn't draft well today or this weekend, I don't think, at a real high level. I don't think it was horrible. I don't think it was as bad as people are saying, but I don't think it was great. It could have been better. But it was horrible in 22.
Hey, the injury
21.
The injuries
23. You know what I mean? You can't have 2 and 3 and 4 bad drafts in a row and then be like, we had one good draft. It's now we're all back.
The bill for the Trey Lance decision hit the table 2 years ago when they were floundering with all those injuries and McCaffrey was off in Germany getting his Achilles tested. That was here's why not having Trey, the Trey Lance capital that you use, the equity that you invested into him, you got none of it now, and this is why you're coming up massively short. Anyway, let's keep going on here. Larry and Damon, what the fuck was this draft reaching like crazy? Ivan the Ghoul. Yeah, man, it's not our opinion. We're not being nasty. We're not being cruel. This is now hard to debate evidence. I want to bring it up one more time here, Larry. There are the Niners. You don't even need to take the comment down because the Niners are so far removed on the right-hand bottom corner of this chart.
Okay. Well, once again, okay, I hear you. And we leave that chart up for a second. Look who's on the top of the chart. Washington, how many rings? None. Carolina, how many rings? None. Colts, how many rings? None. Bengals, how many rings? None. Jets, how many rings? None. Giants, how many rings? None. I see the Bucks, they got a ring in there somewhere. But Raiders, none. Falcons, none. You know what I mean? Like the top 10, the top 7 teams that are all shitbirds.
Well, there's a lot of coach turnover, a lot of reasons why things don't work out. It's
I think the Niners could win a Super Bowl if they drafted well. That's the thing. They would win a Super Bowl. They might be a dynasty if they would draft better.
They do.
This is so frustrating to me.
In a weird way, they do draft well. If it's just a little bit better, they probably have a Super Bowl. They don't need to be one of the best drafting teams. They need to be anything other than we think we can prove you're the worst at it.
By the way, I came up with, and I'm doing a video on this. I decided because, so many people are like, Krug, you're such a 7th round guy. You love the 7th round guys. And I do. I'll fully admit it. I love the late round sleepers. And then this draft was viewed as, this is a disaster draft, the thinnest draft of all time. The 7th round is like a waste of time. So I decided I picked 10 players in the 7th round, and I'm going to do a video. I'm calling that that's the Larry Krueger team. And I'm going to watch my 10 picks in the 7th round over the next 2 or 3 years. And I'm going to compare what my 7th round, my 10 7th rounders do against all these other teams that drafted. And I bet you it's going to be good. Garrett Nussmeier, he's going to be good. He's in Kansas City. We got this one from Dale. NFL owners are not fans. They don't care about winning. If the team is profitable, the Niners are highly profitable. Well,
I'm going to put back on that. I'm gonna push back on that a little. Of course, there's a point where you're making so much money that, here's the thing. All the teams in the NFL make a lot of money. You can win or lose. If you win, you only make more money. So, I mean, the Niners are not a team that doesn't care about winning. I say that they have one of the best cultures of winning in the sport of football. You can't say they don't care about winning. They just prevent themselves from winning more with selections made around the NFL draft.
It's always set up. It's the setup. It's the setup of the situation. I mean, it's like Jed. I mean, think about this. Jed had the setup. Well, first of all, he hired, Singletary in the locker room and made Nolan and all these bad decisions. Okay. Finally, they arrive on Harbaugh. Okay. Instead of having Harbaugh and some handpicked general manager, he decides he's going to have Trent Baalke and Harbaugh. And then Harbaugh, in literally the 24 hours after the opening presser, demanded that Jed fire Baalke and hire Mike Lombardi. Okay. This was 24 hours. And Jed shared that information with Baalke. And so Baalke and Harbaugh hated each other the whole time because Baalke knew that Harbaugh didn't want him. And so it was always frosty. The only warm presser they ever did was the introduction presser. After that, those guys hated each other with a mad passion. All right. So it didn't work, right? So then he goes, I'm gonna get a group that's tied together. So he gets Shanahan, and he allows Shanahan to hire Lynch, and they're tied together. I think this guy's right, though. Part of the reason Jed's like, I'm not going to say anything is because he's got Kyle, and he knows Kyle's handpicked GM is Lynch. If he tries to say get rid of Lynch, he probably loses Kyle in the process. So the whole thing blows up if he tries to get rid of Lynch. One, and as the texter Dale here is our chatter says, the Niners are making a lot of money, and their coffers are strong, and they're hosting Super Bowls and World Cups, and lots of good things are going on. So I think while he loves Shanahan, lots of good things going on, and he's just kind of hoping that the whole thing works out. But I think it's going to take Jed to walk in there and say, look, our structure, we need to change our structure. I want you guys here, but I want you here in the right roles. Kyle, I want you to coach. John, I want you to lead. Let's get a nerdy general manager, and let's start winning Super Bowls. Because if they can clean up the efficiency in their drafting, they're going to win a Super Bowl. But if they can't, this regime's gonna be done within the next 5 years. Dimitrov says Lynch is a Hall of Famer. Lynch is uber dog. He changes the culture with his presence alone. Let him trade. Don't just let him draft, but keep Lynch. No, keep Lynch. Keep them both.
Yeah, here's the thing. He's a wonderful leader. He really is. He's great. He's a great representative. He doesn't step on his own, dick when he comes talking about this football team. He doesn't. He is a smart, savvy football lifer that only makes the room better. Yes. But his voice on draft day needs to be muted out of someone who's more dialed into how modern drafting works. It just
well, we need a buck stops with him guy. And it has to be that guy. Right now, John, I think, is building consensus, and he's using his people. We're going to use the research and analytic people. We're going to use the development people. Forster likes this guy. Kasarik likes that guy. We're going to try to satisfy Kyle. He's trying to juggle 9 different things in the air. Just let him be the president, and let's let somebody who's a proven drafter with right now, Jason Licht is killing the draft. He is the Tampa general manager. Did you see what Tampa did in this draft? Tampa is going to win a Super Bowl. Tampa is kicking all kinds of ass. And Jason Licht is kind of cheesy. But you know what? Reuben Bain, Josiah Trotter, Ted Hurst, Keontae Scott, DeMonte Capehart. I mean, that's their first 5 picks.
By the way, outside of Reuben Bain, every single one of those picks could have been a 49er pick. And then the Niners could have come back and selected everyone that they've already picked in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Here's
the thing. I might be wrong in 1 or 2 spots.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. I mean, I hate to admit that, but you're probably right. Joseph Ernberg says these players won't
admit that I'm right.
No, not that you're right, but I hate to admit that the Niners actually have that many guys that were going to be undrafted. I don't know if all of their, like Gracen Halton was going to be drafted. Jaden Duggar, I think, was going to be drafted. Some of these other guys, I mean, I really think, I really believe that if you go do the deep dive that I did and go look at all of their picks, you're going to find that a lot of their screw ups, yeah, they screwed up Reuben Foster, Solomon Thomas, and a couple other defensive guys. They had a lot of screw ups on offense.
So
I would say
it's all what Shanahan knows the most about is the pit that he keeps stepping in.
Yeah. Just coach, Kyle. Just coach. Joseph Ehrenberg. And I know that's insulting. You know, I know that's I don't mean it to be insulting, but I really think that it's like Mike Holmgren was a great quarterback coach, one of the best of all time. When did Seattle struggle? When he became such a great coach that he became the general manager. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, Mike Holmgren, the general manager, not very good. And guess what? Bill Belichick is maybe the best coach ever. Bill Belichick, the general manager, got Bill Belichick, the head coach, fired.
And look, I just think it's harder to be GM now than ever before. NIL has changed everything dramatically. You're getting older players coming out later in their developmental careers. You got guys who really don't get coached up in any one system because they've been in 3 different systems because they transferred 3 different times. It's harder to evaluate now than ever before, especially when you're an NFL head coach trying to figure out a way to beat the Rams and the Seahawks.
You cannot moonlight at a full-time job. It's like somebody saying, hey, it's like a good play-by-play guy saying, you know what? I'm just going to moonlight. I'm going to moonlight doing sports talk radio. How'd that work for you? Fill in the blank. It didn't work well for you because it's a totally different skill set. It's a different skill set to describe what you see as opposed to thoughts and holding an audience and doing a talk show. Different skill set and coaching and drafting are different skill sets. And what are the odds that the same people that are blessed to be the best play caller, play sequencer, also that same guy has this unbelievable eye for talent? It's unlikely, and it's probably not the case. Ehrenberg says these players won't do shit. Another midseason coming.
Well, I mean, it was last season mid. I didn't think it was mid at all. They were a playoff team. They won a playoff game. That's not a mid-season. They were a 12-win football team.
Yeah, man.
That's not mid.
It felt pretty not mid when I was walking out of that Eagles-Niners locker room, in Philly. But I hear what Ehrenberg's saying. It was another year where they didn't win the Super Bowl, and they feel like they're further away from it than they felt in training camp. And so that I understand what he's saying. I understand that frustration. Cosmo says the problem is not the players, it's the spot they were selected in. Thank you. When they're solid picks for position needs, O-line, safety, tight end, their best picks are UDFAs. I kind of agree. Cosmo, I kind of agree. I think you're onto something there. Dale says at the end of the day, the Niners have nothing for year-over-year talent, as in they don't have replacements in the pipeline. Yeah. I'll say this. If you made a list of the Niners' best players, and I said to you, who's their best player under 25? Who's their best player under 30 or under 28, let's say? So who's their best young player? Purdy?
It's Brock Purdy.
Upton Stout? The list is short, and the Rams list is long, and the Seahawks list is longer, and that's a problem. We've got this one. Fuji. I'm still shocked LA took a quarterback in the first round.
Again, if you thought that was a reach, wait and you see the Niners draft.
SF Niners 808. Lynch thinks of this too much as a former player. He's too buddy locker room guy. Get some dogs and stop catering to your old vets. Be a real GM. I'll say this. There's a warmness to the Niners that I think, the best personnel guys are cold. But I also don't think this is a part-time job. John Lynch is not in Ann Arbor every weekend. He's with the Niners. He's in the suite at Niner games. He's at practice. He's at practice every day watching the Niners. He's watching his team on the field. He has a role at the pro level in their day-to-day. It's like, you know what? Just, be on the road. And this is not the Niners give their coaches a lot of say in the draft. I could ask Chris Furster about top-tier offensive linemen in college in January, and he would look at me like, who? I have no idea. So you're telling me that Chris Furster is such a great football guy that he doesn't have to look at anybody until February, and then by April he's up to speed with the guys who have been watching these guys for years? I think not. We got this one from Ben. He says Chase Bisonta should have been our pick at 33. I kind of agree. I mean, they needed that strength. He was one of the best available players and was a need. I still don't understand their logic there. Jed should bring in someone to draft better. Yeah, I mean, you getting strong. I mean, I think they should have identified their themes. And that one of their themes, I mean, I would have done it for them. One of their themes is that your interior of your offensive line is not strong enough. And you had Chase Bisontis, who's like the strongest guy in the history of the A&M program, who played left guard. You need a left guard. He's sitting right there, late first-round pick. Stop overthinking it. Turn in the card and go have a sandwich.
And here's the thing. If you don't want to draft a guard in the first round, okay, this isn't the first round anymore.
Plus, I mean, there was some great strength at guard in this draft. Dunker, Farmer, Weewoo, Jeremiah Wright. You got none of them. You got these movement guys.
And Emmanuel McNeil Warren. You go ahead and get a Bud Clark. There were safeties there. I mean, my God, the Kilgore, when they were late in the draft, they're sitting there just looking. I'm like, it's got to be Kilgore. It's got to be Kilgore. It was not.
You have to have a vision for Jalen Kilgore, and they obviously didn't share that vision. David Esger says, has anyone just compared who the Niners would have picked if they just took Brugger's best available at the time the Niners were on the board? Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to do that video later today, actually, to be honest. John Muniz says, it's nothing new. This team never drafts good. Will never change because end of the day, the team is winning. This D after class will never see the field this year. I don't agree with that. I think I think you are going to see some of those undrafted guys get on the field. But I hear your frustration. John Muniz, it's nothing new. This team never. Okay, we got this. We got that one. Let me skip down. We got this one from Fletcher. Lynch and Kyle did an amazing job.
There we go. There's some positivity.
Probably a Seahawk fan. The regular Ryan. Brock is the only core player drafted this decade. Upton Stout. But yeah, I hear you. Maybe some other guys. Maybe CJ West. Maybe Collins. But it's a lot of question marks right now. John Muniz, tired of front office being the smartest guys in the league.
Well, at some point, them being so to go against the grain this much, this often, with so little success to actually show for it in the players that you're drafting, to say we're against the grain again, takes some big brass ones. I mean, it really does.
Well, and also it's like there's something amiss here. When Tariq Ahmad sat down and talked to us, he painted a picture of like they do like an absurd amount of like evaluation of themselves. Well, then why aren't they making any changes? Because their job that they've done. I mean, is it all based on the record? Is it like, well, we won 12 games. You're winning. You're winning in spite of your drafting, not because of it. I really do believe that at this juncture. I really think that if the Niners had a sharp young GM that was hitting winners in the draft, they would win multiple championships and be on top of the football world. Rez Thug says they did nothing to stop Murphy and Williams. Yeah. I mean, why is Murphy and Williams not kicking your ass? Why? You get to 4th and 1. You're playing the Seahawks tomorrow. Now last year you had Burford and Brendel. Now you have Colby and Brendel. Are you going to be able to run in the A gaps against Murphy and Williams? No.
But you've got a really good blocking wide receiver. That's great.
Well, you do have the back, though. I mean, let's be honest. Now you could run the back up the middle because now Kaelon Black is going to get stoned, but then he's going to keep rolling, and then he's going to get that first down. Stonewalled. Frank Mello says David Njoku is still available. Thought on if you guys feel that he'd be a good fit. In fact, I'm doing a video on this today. I looked last night. I'm doing about 6 or 7 videos this morning. One of them is going to be which are the best remaining free agents. And I have him and Joey Bosa on a list. To me, Njoku, they should sign Njoku. though I do love Khalil Dinkins from Penn State as a blocker. I think that was a really great undrafted free agent. But yes, I would sign Njoku and I would sign Joey Bosa. We have this one from Ernberg. I love Kaelon Black, but he will never play. Let's be real.
Look at it this way. If he doesn't play, that's on Kyle. It's on Kyle who drafted him, and it's on Kyle who is asking Christian McCaffrey to carry the ball 300-something times again. I mean, you look at it. McCaffrey had 311 carries last year. Brian Robinson Jr., who we can all agree was hardly even used after they trade for him, even though he had a better rushing average than McCaffrey, 4.3 to McCaffrey's 3.9. He only got 92 carries. Is Kaelon Black going to get 100 carries next year? I got to see it before I believe it.
I would say he is, but here's the disconnect again. And it's like, do you guys even remember that you said this? Kyle just said that he didn't play Brian Robinson because he didn't have the same skill set as Christian McCaffrey. And then they draft Kaelon Black, and he doesn't have the same skill set.
He's not a big pass catcher out of the backfield. Now you're going to go ahead and you're going to give him a jug to live with.
You know, I mean, are you going to use him? You know, it's like, yeah, I think it's a fair question, actually. T, do you think all these rookies ride the bench again? Yes. No, I don't. I think they'll find a way to get some of these guys on the field, but is it going to be enough?
I think Romello Height plays. I think that Prysock might get on the field, and I think that Halton plays.
Well, definitely Halton. Yeah, Halton's going to play I would say I think Stribling plays because I think there's tons of opportunity. I think Romello Height plays. I think Kaelon Black plays. I think Gracen Halton plays. I think the rest of those guys are all not going to see the field. Carver Willis, I don't think makes the team. Enrique Cruz is going to have a hard time making the team. Frisian's Prysock's going to have a hard time making the team. You know, Kyle said, hey, you know, we just want to see all these guys make the team. Well, they're not. You know, how are you going to have two rookie O linemen make the team when they're not going to start and you already signed 3 free agent veterans to be on the bench and you already had guys on the bench?
Right. The numbers game doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up.
Doesn't add up. I mean, that you should have taken Carver Willis or Enrique Cruz, not both. And you probably should have had at least one more edge rusher in there.
You should have taken neither. You should have drafted Chase Basantes at 33rd overall and then come back for Stribling in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I agree. They should have gone with Chase Basantes or a guard. That's where the value was. And I know they're like, oh, you know, we don't want to
watching Arizona closely to see what he turns into.
Yeah, we'll see. God, Arizona had a hell of a draft. Monty Ossenfort. Joseph Ernberg, we'll see Black when we're down by 35 in the playoffs.
That's when we met Jordan James.
The logical truth says moving back in the draft to acquire lesser valued picks only to use those picks on overvalued prospects doesn't sound like a recipe for winning Super Bowls. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I mean, you traded back. I mean, think about it. You traded back to reach dramatically. It's like, if you're going to trade back, you may as well just lean into it and trade back and trade back and trade back. And also, for all this trading back, where's the volume? They wound up with how many picks did they wind up with?
Went from 6 to 8.
Yeah. John Schneider went from 4 to 8. He doubled his picks and got some better higher end players. I mean, it's frustrating. John Muniz, Hamptons plus Kerr equals Cabo Crew plus Shanahan.
Well, but here's the thing.
That's the
Hamptons and Steve Kerr, 4 champion. Well, 3. I got 2, right? Because there's 2 before the Hamptons, and then there's 2. So say whatever you want about Kerr and that. Pelts on the wall, banners in the rafters. The when it comes to the Super Bowl, we got shrug emojis.
When Joe Lacob, though, looks at the Niners drafting, he's like, hey, I don't think it's all that bad. You know, yeah, because look at your drafting. The Warrior drafting is a tire fire. It's like Joe and his kids. Too much sauce. Do you trust the 49er management drafting competence?
They're pushing it. I mean, it's official to say they're pushing it. Like this draft class. How many draft classes in a row can you just be like, well, they better get the next one right. They better get the next one right. They better get the next one right.
Well, I think you have to. I think you have to trust them. Look at the record they have. They're winning games. I mean, you draft to build. You build to win. If you win,
Nothing matters. That's the thing.
Nobody hangs a flag on the top of their stadium that says that we had the highest draft grade. Nobody cares about that. They only really care about winning, and they've won. They just haven't won it all. But the issue is here. They've won because of what I said before. Lynch has got Shanahan's got is a great coach with a great staff. Lynch made some very one-sided trades, and especially early in their regime, they hit so big on some day 3 picks that it really camouflaged their ineptitude at the beginning of the draft. But as time goes on, it's obvious that they need change.
Look,
and they have to change their front office. It's not like, well, they probably no. Jed, are you watching? You have to do this. Kyle's got to be the coach and only the coach. And John's got to be the president and only the president. And you need to go find a nerdy general manager and give him control. And if you do those things, you'll win. And if you don't do those things, you might win, but
you'll win less.
I personally don't think you're going to get it done without doing that. That's where I'm at. The logical truth. And I like John Lynch and I like Kyle Shanahan. It's not like I'm calling for regime change. I want to, you need more help, right? You're not perfect. You needed more physical therapists. You needed more hydrotherapy. You're not perfect. You have to keep, and you're not perfect in the front office, and you have to keep adding. The logical truth. P.S. I know you have reservations on Grant Cohn, Damon, but you got to love him putting John Lynch on the spot during the press conference. You're muted. I'm not hearing you at all, Damon. Oh, wait. Now I hear something.
I don't know why.
Oh, yeah. Now I hear you.
There you go. You got me?
Yeah, now I get.
I said I already gave Grant his flowers in this video. I did. I already gave Grant his flowers. I thought he asked a big brass balled question in a room that needed to ask it.
Yeah. And the people who want to rip it and say, well, it wasn't the place or time or this or that, that's on the Niner PR.
Oh, shit, it's a press conference.
It's a Niner PR. If they don't want those questions, then they have to give access to the media to ask the questions in different settings. If you don't like that setting, and I'm sure they didn't. Oh, I'm sure they didn't. Why? Because Warren Sharp saw it, and then the nation saw it, and I'm sure they hated that setting. Lynch glared at him. Shanahan spent a minute and a half with a word salad trying to defend it. They hated that question. If they could have absolutely killed Cohn right there, they probably would have. But if you don't give the media any other avenue to ask questions, they're going to ask those questions in the presser. And then that presser is going to be carried on the NFL Network, and then it's going to mushroom. So if that had been done in a side session, it would have gotten some love, but it wouldn't have gone where it went. Instead, it became just a gigantic thing, and it's all because they didn't give enough access, and the only access that was granted was that presser. So the only way Grant was getting that question holstered is if he fired it in the presser. So it's you got to give people room to ask big time questions. If you're going to put it on television and confine it to a tight space, then you're going to have to live with what you get. Kevin Woods says, is Kyle and Lynch being icy coming from the same source that said that Pearsall and Green were getting traded, or Garrett trade Dieter shot down on his show. What?
Basically, he's taking a shot at you, Larry. No, here's the thing. I think
is Kyle and Lynch being icy?
No, it's from what Larry observed when he was down at that press conference. It's what I saw too. It didn't seem like Shanahan and Lynch were
I wasn't there.
High-fiving.
I wasn't there. I was watching it on television like you guys. I did the draft day
you were
2
down there
day
on Friday
3
in the studio.
I was there Thursday, but I wasn't there Friday or Saturday. Yeah, as far as the same source, the source that told me that the Niners were likely to trade Pearsall and Green was somebody who's well positioned in the 49er organization to know that.
I told you it was bullshit.
And I shared it. I shared it with you guys. You're right. From now on, when I hear stuff, I won't share it because you guys, if it doesn't come to fruition, then you get mad.
Wrong.
Look how many people were mad about that. And yet, it was pretty obvious that, they at least considered moving Renardo Green. And as far as the Pearsall thing, this is what this guy told me, and he was in position to know, and I shared it with you, and it didn't wind up coming to fruition. As far as the Garrett trade, that was always a long shot.
Yeah, it was a long shot. That was a fun thing to talk about.
Andrew Berry was on record before we ever even said one word about that, saying that it was not going to happen. But there was a lot of smoke there. By the way, if you're saying that Dieter knows all, Dieter had Hunter, the Texas Tech nose guard, undrafted. He went in the second round. John Snow says Scanahan needs to get a Super Bowl quest for six 30 years ago. Yeah.
Well, he wasn't the coach 30 years ago. I'm not holding the first 20 years against him.
Too much sauce. Not even trying to be hyperbolic here, but we gave the NBA OKC's Sam Presti 1 week to prep for the NFL draft. He'd do a better job than the Niners. Sam Presti is pretty sharp. He'd probably trade for every 7th round pick. Let's see. I felt we skipped one here. We might have missed one here. We got that.
I don't know. I'm not controlling.
We got that. We got this one. We got that one. Here we go. Dimitrov. A badass is a badass. A kid can see that. They're ignoring the obvious and doing cute shit. Where is common sense in the building? We got the rest. Once again, these guys, they're putting lots and lots of time into it. So it's not about, do they not know what they're watching? But you know what? The old see a lot, see nothing. Sometimes you're too close to it. Sometimes you're so in the weeds on stuff that have you ever been in the weeds on something and somebody who doesn't spend a 1/100th of the amount of time that you spend on it, comes in and rides in and has some half-cocked statement.
It's like having it's like saying
they could be right.
They
didn't put anything into it, but they could be right.
It's like we've got consensus within our band that we're really good. But you're not selling enough albums and you don't sell out your shows at all. So the audience says that your consensus really does not matter.
Did you read
the 49ers are saying?
But did you read the Bucky Brooks tweet?
I have not read the Bucky Brooks tweet.
Okay, so it's worthy of reading. Bucky Brooks came out and he made a great point the other day. And his point was just that we are observing this. We don't know what their board is. Their board is based on how each player is going to. Here it is. He says, FYI, it's unfair to judge a team's draft class based on consensus boards without a thorough understanding of the team's plans for the team, its players' scheme. It's impossible to suggest a pick is good or bad. Teams build their draft boards based on grades that project how a player will perform or contribute within their system. The consensus boards and media scouting reports lack that context. Without a clear understanding of the why behind each pick, critics are missing some of the key tidbits that are critical to a full assessment. In the NFL, it takes 2 to 3 years to determine whether players can play or not. That's why we should reserve judgment till we see how the players perform, how teams utilize their personnel. That's not fun, but none of us are privy to the 32 draft boards or the schematic or personnel.
I agree with that, Larry.
The draft. He says we can debate who was selected and where they were picked, but until we understand the why and see how it plays out between the lines, we're still playing the guessing game. So, I think that is very well stated, is that we just don't know what they want in a player, what they see in a player. They can always point to they're spending more time on it. We can always point to, well, look at the results. It's a constant, it's a moving target. Like
it's why
John Schneider did terrible, and now John Schneider's doing great.
It's why I began today's show, Larry, saying I wish that I could see the top 10. Yeah, I wish that every single general manager had to release his on Monday after the draft. Here are the players I had first round grades on, because it would give us a little bit more insight into what they really think they need for their team, or what players they really think are about to be successful NFL players. The problem for John Lynch and what is creeping up on him in his Warren Sharp article is you can go back to the reaches that he made in real time in 2023 and come out with 31. He was the 31st most reachingest general manager in football, meaning that he's the second most reachingest general manager in football in 2023. How'd that draft class go? He raised to 28 in 2024. How'd that draft class go? Last year, 2025. How'd that draft class go? He was 31. And as this draft ends, he is ranked number 32.
We all read it, Damon. We know.
Yeah,
we know.
Well, the consensus big board is easy to roll your eyes at until you go against the grain so often that we're now rolling our eyes more at what your gut tells you according to the consensus.
Right. But he dropped the whole hammer on Lynch, and it's just not fair. For my example is, look at John Schneider. Is John Schneider a good GM? Yeah, he's a very good GM. He's a very good GM, okay? He drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. He took Bobby Wagner in the 2nd round. Those guys are going to the Hall of Fame. They won a Super Bowl, right? But then, look at their top picks. Let me just give you a few names here. 2013, Kristen Michael, Jordan Hill, Chris Harper, busts. 2014, Paul Richardson, Justin Britt, Cassius Marsh, busts. The next year, Frank Clark, Tyler Lockett, Terry Poole. I mean, there's a couple good players there. Getting better. But then you go down to 2016. Jermaine Ifedi was their 1st round pick. You go into the next draft. They go Malik McDowell, who was just a really bad guy. Ethan Posich, in their first 2 picks. The next year, they took Rashad Penny in the 1st round and Rasheem Green with the next pick. Then they took L.J. Collier, Marquise Blair in the first 2 picks of the 2019 draft. Then they came back in the next draft in 2020. They took Jordan Brooks and Darrell Taylor. They took Dwayne Eskridge and Trey Brown in 2021. Do you see what I'm saying? So then
when they started hitting on picks, what happened? Did they then win a Super Bowl?
They dumped Pete. Okay, somewhere in there they dumped Pete, right? And look what they've done in the last couple of years. 2022 without Pete, Kenneth Walker, Boye Mafe, Charles Cross. 2023, Devin Weatherspoon, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Derek Hall, Zach Charbonnet, Anthony Bradford, top 5 picks. 2024 without Pete, Byron Murphy, Tyrese Knight, AJ Barner, Gray Zabel, Nick Emanwari last year. I mean,
hey man,
my point is this: is that these are group projects. Obviously, John Schneider's doing a great job now, but he wasn't necessarily doing a great job when Pete was there. And I asked when I was up in Seattle for the playoffs, I was talking to Softy. I said, Softy, what happened with their front office? What's going on up here? And he's like, when Pete was here at the end, he really lost his feel for the draft, and he was still a lot of the picks were predicated on his desires. And then when he left, John's been able to kind of be freed of that and look at what John's done. So all I would say, I'm not saying that Lynch would be a great GM if freed of Shanahan. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I think Shanahan has I think they're hand in hand. And I think it's
absolutely. Kyle has way too much
Kyle got the free ride there, though, didn't he not?
He gets way too much say to not have accountability in these draft picks. At the same time, what you just explained with John Schneider sounds to me like you don't have much success when you draft poorly or an average, but when you draft really well, you can win a Super Bowl. I'm waiting for that really well drafts stacked 2 or 3 years on top of each other from the 49ers, and it doesn't seem like they're coming. And this one doesn't seem like it's coming soon either. Now, maybe we're wrong. Maybe all these guys hit the field in training camp, and it's one big scoop of, oh, they're awesome. Right. And that could happen. That totally could happen.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, will they change the way they go about it, or will next year they be looking at draft picks that on the consensus big board are available 2 days from now and taking them in the 1st or 2nd round?
The pushback today from the people supporting Lynch will be, hey, look at their record, look at the team. But the question has to be asked, are the Niners winning because of John's drafting, or are the Niners winning in spite of their drafting? And I would argue that it's probably more the latter, and that they need to upgrade it, and they need to, put everybody in the right role. Let's have everybody do what they're good at. That's my philosophy. Dale says, thank you both for putting up with fans. Been a Niner for 40 years, Niner fan probably for 40 years. Glad to know I'm not the only one that sees the same problem. Insanity drafting.
Thank you,
I mean, insanity, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. In a lot of ways, I think insanity might be the good word. The Last Hero says, whose choice was it to draft Solomon Thomas in 2017? That guy shouldn't be making picks for us.
That was definitely question. Lynch, right? I mean, definitely.
I mean, you would think.
Stanford guy, first draft, takes the Stanford guy. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, well, the whole story was they had a class together, but, I mean, how about this? I mean, there's some basic rules, but don't draft Stanford defensive linemen in the first round. I mean, I can't think of a good one. We got this one. Oh, we got that one. We got this one from West Coast Spur. Please name me one difference maker that has been drafted in the past years besides Purdy, who we lucked into. Remember, Trey was drafted the same year. I would say I think Upton Stout is very much a difference maker. And I also believe that CJ West in time is going to be very much a difference maker. I did an interview in December with Jordan Elliott in the locker room, and we started talking about the year. And I said, hey, man, you're the veteran in this room. There's some young guys in this room. Tell me what you think about their rookie year, because it was almost over, right? And he's like, and he started talking about CJ West. And I'm like, what about Alfred? And he's like, yeah, Alfred, Alfred's pretty good. But, CJ, I mean, it was really like CJ West was the guy between him and Collins.
I like CJ.
Really,
I can't wait to see.
Love CJ West. And I love CJ West in that draft.
I can't wait to see what he is a year from now. I can't wait to see what he looks like in year number 2. Yeah. Let me just say this about Upton Stout. And I really like Upton Stout. And we both said the same thing. When he was out there in training camp in shells, we were like, what are you? At the minute the pads went on, we got it with Upton Stout. Having said all that, as much as we like him, the Niners took him at 100. He was expected to go around 170. And among 114 corners last year, Stout graded out 75th in coverage and 59th overall in Pro Football Focus. Now, I don't think the Pro Football Focus grades are the end-all, be-all of anything. And my own eyes tell me Upton Stout's a dog. Give him time. He's playing a failure rate position at nickel slot in his
you were dead last in pass rush. He was a rookie corner that had to play the toughest position on the field. Liars use stats. The Niners' lack of pass rush. I mean, Renardo Green graded out low. I think he's pretty good. Demo Lenore had his worst year. I think he's pretty good. The Niner DBs were not done a favor by the Niner D line. That's for sure.
Right.
You got to have some pass rush. But I hear you. He wasn't very highly rated, but I think our eyes tell us that he's a pretty damn good.
Again, I want to say I do like Romello Height. I do like Romello Height an awful lot. We've spent so much of today's show talking about what we didn't like.
We're going to finish with the positive. We're going to finish with who do we love? Yeah. We'll definitely finish with that. Fuji says, off topic now that the NFL draft is over, I checked in on the Giants and they are just under 500, but some players are starting to hit good. It's early, I know. I didn't. The one thing I don't do at all during the draft is watch a minute of Giants baseball. But I bet them yesterday with Roop on the mound, because Roop is win day. And I would suggest, if you're into betting baseball, bet the Giants when Roop is on the mound. He's a battler. So he's really good.
If he starts walking fewer dudes, he's going to look even better. He's really good. He's
good.
If he can get his control down a little bit. And let's just say the Giants, if they just get Willie Adames and Rafael Devers to look anything like the back of their baseball card might suggest they will start winning some baseball games. Even Jung-Hoo Lee's been hitting pretty well over the last handful of weeks. So it's time for guys like Matt Chapman to do something offensively other than weak at-bats.
Monty says another big surprise: no undrafted free agent running back signing. At least none yet. You may hear one here in the next day. We'll see. Larry, if you want to get your point across to Jed, you draft. Wait. Larry, if you want to get your Dimitrov, if you want to get your point across to Jed, you draft better, you win a Super Bowl equals you will raise your EBITDA by 50.
That's the overall. What's the value of what you're doing? All money in, all money out, everything. The estimated benefit of what is a what, I forget what it stands
I
for.
don't
I'm
know.
not a finance
I
guy,
don't know.
but I do know what this stands for. I know what he's trying to say here.
Believe me,
But
I'm not. You directed this to me. I'm not saying that I don't want to draft better. I'm not saying that they're drafting well enough. I'm firmly with Damon on this one. They're not drafting well enough. They're not doing it well enough. They're. I said it before. I asked the question and I answered it. Are they winning because of their drafting, or are they winning in spite of their drafting? And I think they're winning in spite of their
by the
drafting.
way, that stands for earnings before investment, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So that's what that stands. That's a big business acronym right there.
Man, we're limited over here, Dimitrov. You're gonna have to do better than Dimitrov is gonna have to dumb it down a little bit. Slow Civic Garage. Are the Yorks? I'm not.
Yeah, that doesn't even get read. Thanks for the super. Stop being anti-Semitic, you douchebag.
Come on, dude. All right. Let's finish with, what do you come out of this draft excited about? Let's go there.
Okay.
What are you excited about?
I am excited. I am excited about Romello Height. I absolutely am. And I think of all of the picks that they made, he is the least reachy, makes the most sense on the board. And even he is a reach. There's no doubt. But I really like that player. I fell in love with him late in our drafting process. And I just thought, man, this guy would look good in a 49ers uniform. If you're not going to get a Cassius Howell, this Texas Tech edge right here looks like he's got the boogie on him. And he really does. I think he is going to be a very good 49er. I think he is in their NASCAR package day one. And I want to just say that it breaks my heart that Kaelon Black isn't the player everyone's like, oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I think you're going to really like the player. You might hate his draft position for the rest of his life. But I do think you're going to like Kaelon Black. And I do think he is going to ingratiate himself in a way that makes Shanahan say, I can't afford to not play the guy. He never fumbles. He moves piles. He's good in short yardage, yet he's still explosive. He's not just a power back. He can break away from the field. I think you're really going to like him, and you're going to go like, dude, this guy is a football player, period, end of story. And he's going to allow Christian McCaffrey to line up in the slot a little bit more, which is another reason why I think drafting a wide receiver number one was a little bit of a reach, no matter what his name was going to be. I just didn't think it was as urgent a need. It was a need, wasn't as urgent a need as, a position that they ignored until the fourth round, fifth round came along.
I'm excited about the defensive players that they got. I think they really did help their defense.
What do you think of Jaden Duggar?
I really like him. He's raw. He was a safety at Georgetown. He hasn't played linebacker very much, but you're also talking about a guy who's got great length, great feel, and 125 tackles this year at Louisiana. So I like Duggar as you basically said Winters for Duggar, right? So you traded Winters for a fifth, and then you took Duggar in the fifth. So I like that one. I really like him. I really like Gracen Halton. As far as, this is a very fast defensive tackle. Like, if you watch his film, he looks like he almost moves like a defensive end. I mean, he's got great speed, great explosion. I think he'll be a really good interior rusher. He's not an every down defensive tackle. He's a Kalia Davis. You're going to play him in a rotation, but I think he's going to give you a lot.
I am having him move in with Osa Odigizua and just be like, you be like this guy. This is a sacking defensive tackle. Hopefully they got a second one in Gracen Halton.
Yeah, so Romello Height, Gracen Halton, Jaden Duggar, I really like. It's interesting. I talked to Dave Softy Mahler. He thinks that Euphemism's Prysock is got some potential. And Lewis Riddick from ESPN said that was his favorite pick that the Niners made. It's a big swing at a guy who's likely to big swing trying to get a number one corner. He's got number one corner traits. There's a lot of development there, but I think he's interesting.
He's like 6'3", 6'4". He's
a big corner. And, I think he's going to struggle with the transitions and the penalties and all that. I'm not sure if he's a corner, maybe he's a safety, but at that size, I think he's a really intriguing traits day 3 pick. And then I really love 3 of their undrafted guys. I'm a gigantic fan of James Thompson. I was trying to, argue that the Niners should go for Thompson in the 5th or 6th round. This guy went to the East-West Shrine game and just kicked ass. He was so incredible at 6'6", 308 pounds. The other thing is, like, when you go and do the research on his profile, they'll say, oh, this guy's really strong. He had 22 reps at 225. Oh, that guy's really strong. He had, CJ West, he had 23 reps at 225. James Thompson had 36 reps of 225. That's a whole new strength level. And he's 6'6", he's 310 pounds roughly. And when you saw him in the one-on-ones before the East-West Shrine game, he was winning with speed. He was winning with power. He was winning with technique and moves. I think that's a phenomenal undrafted pick, James Thompson.
Well,
the other one is your guy. I love Mikhail Kamara. I mean, Mikhail Kamara, the biggest, most overrated aspect of great defenders, I think, is height. Where, if you're going to go, I want to take a guy on day 3 and I want to get a great player. Well, don't go for a guy who's a bad guy, who's a criminal. Don't go for a guy who, doesn't have production. Go for a guy who's a good guy, who works hard, who has great production. But then what got him to the 3rd round or got him to day 3? What got Mikhail Kamara to day 3 is that instead of being 6'4", 260, he's 6 foot 260.
Right.
But if you watch Indiana, especially in 2024, or JMU when he was there before he transferred, this guy turned himself from a 0-star recruit to a star player and had a blocked punt. He had the biggest play in the Natty. You were there.
It was huge.
The biggest play in the national title game was Mikhail Kamara blocking the punt.
Well, I mean, I would say Mendoza diving into the end zone was a pretty big play too. There's no doubt about that. But look,
this was huge. This was awesome. Look at the game, and that was a major play in the game. Kamara is a difference maker off the edge, and it doesn't bother me that he's 6 feet and 260. I love this player. I think he's, he in a wide 9, get up the field. You don't ask your ends to drop into coverage. You just want them to burn the edge and hunt the quarterback. He's made for that. He's made for that.
And by the way, he's a really good tackler. He's not just I only come forward. I'm only looking at quarterbacks. I don't make plays on running backs. He's not that at all, man. He makes plays all over the football field. He runs dudes down from behind. He's fast. Very good.
Let me give you two more that I really love. Okay.
We got one more here. We could have had Brady when he left the Patriots. Oh, John, let's not go over.
Wow. Hey, you can forget when he left the Patriots. Tom Brady showed up at the Niners local pro day and they drafted 2 quarterbacks in the draft and neither of them were Brady. I mean, that was the biggest nightmare. That's where Bill Walsh, it's like Bill Walsh is on camera saying that Gio Carmazzi was the best quarterback in that draft.
Yeah.
God, that was, talk about, losing your fastball. All right. Never speak ill of the dead. Couple guys that I really loved. Khalil Dinkins was one of my favorite players in this draft. This is the Penn State tight end, Damon. And this guy was a good recruit, high recruit. He's strong and he's got great length. 6'4", 250, 33.25-inch arms, really long arms. His strength, he's from Wexford, PA. He's a blocker. But Niners paid him $275,000 guaranteed because they like this guy. I love this player. Why? First of all, he's a very strong blocker with long arms.
And that's because I think they got Tongas out in the pattern. So if they're having the second tight end, you better block.
This guy is going to make the team. He's a blocker, but he's going to make the team. But here's the thing. He's more than a blocker. Aller sucks. Penn State's offense was atrocious. And they only targeted this guy like 40 times in 4 years. He hardly ever was part of their passing game, but he shows the ability to catch the ball. And, George Kittle was, obscenely underused. as a receiver at Iowa. He was a blocker. And the Niners kind of discovered him in the 5th round because of it. Khalil Dinkins is a much better receiver than people realize, and he is a really strong inline blocker. So that's a two-way tight end right there. And to get him undrafted, I thought was fantastic. One other guy that I really, really like, I love Deuce Chestnut, and the Niners are bringing him in for a tryout. They've yet to sign him, but he's coming in for a tryout. He's a Camden, New Jersey kid. If you've ever been to Camden, New Jersey, it's rough. I mean, you got to be tough. And this kid started at LSU. LSU only recruits the creme de la creme.
Right.
Then
he went
to
Syracuse, right?
Went to Syracuse, and he's a corner, but he's a safety. He's 5'10", but he's a really good corner. He's got good coverage ability. He's tough. He will hit you. He's smart as a whip.
Will he be better than Prysock? Again, that's a question. Like, what if he's better than Prysock?
He's a zone corner, but I think he's going to play safety. I think Chestnut's going to play safety. I think Prysock is going to play corner. Now, the good thing about Prysock, Prysock's better against zone than he is against man. But they're interesting. Chestnut's interesting. Prysock's interesting. I'm probably as interested in both. But
one's not even on the team yet. So. Well, it's not even on the team yet. He's an unsigned, undrafted free agent.
He's going to the local pro day, and we'll see. But and then one last one, Wesley Grimes from NC State. I mean, that to me, to get a player now. Once again, the Niners were so effing slow. They need to add some speed at wide receiver, and to get Stribling, who ran 4.36, was great. But then they got this kid, Wesley Grimes from NC State. And Damon, this kid is 6'2", 195, started at Wake, transferred, very competitive kid, 35-inch vert. They tested him he ran 4.35 at the local NC State Pro Day. Last year in the testing, he ran 4.24. He was Kuiper's 63rd wide receiver, but I really like this kid as a burner. I mean, he is a good receiver with production, with size, with 4.3 speed. So you're adding a couple of 4.3
fewer than 400 yards. Let's see. I mean, he's a full wait and see. How is he going to even stand out in training camp given the other guys that are going to be playing?
9 touchdowns. 9 touchdowns career is not bad. He was a downfield threat for CJ Bailey. And this guy runs a fade, he runs the post, he runs the comeback, he runs the deep out, played in the American Bowl. He's a very competitive kid. I saw him against East Carolina. He caught 4 balls for 121 yards and a touchdown. He is, as you know, him and the Notre Dame kid as undrafted guys are interesting. That's all I'll say.
Probably don't make the team. Let's be honest.
Well, we'll see. I mean, you never know. It's going to be a very competitive situation at wide receiver, but at least you added some vertical speed there. And you needed it. You needed it in the worst way.
Who's gonna be your special teams returner? You need one now that Sky Moore is gone. It's gonna be a good way for somebody here to make this team.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. John Snow says we could have had Brady when he left for the
already
Pats.
did it. Yeah,
okay. Charles says Niners pass on too many gems, looking for diamonds in the rough. Got to quit passing on big time players for the future. We're going to find out. I mean, the beauty of the draft is we all talk about it a lot, and we'll find out.
It fills the hole that is, what are we going to talk about from February to April? It sure does. Now, I don't know, after the fact, after all the discussions we've had, after all the wake-ups, all the videos, all the shorts, all the everything, that we just, were valuable to you because the Niners end up doing like the opposite of everything we talk about for the majority of the time. But now that it is over, and this is my final point, Larry, you can wrap up after this one.
Yeah.
Now that it is over, where anyone was drafted is instantly irrelevant. It does not matter anymore where anyone got picked from. Let's see what they got. Tie on those cleats, put on the pads. Can't wait for training camp to start. You watch, the Niners are going to be a pretty damn good football team again, but they might be doing it in spite of actual snaps and actual on-field presence by yet another rookie class. I hope I'm wrong about that. We'll see. It'll all come out in the wash.
That's going to do it for us. Thanks to all of our sponsors. The links are in the description for all of our sponsors. Join me tonight at 6 o'clock for Niners Nightly on KMBR. We'll break down the entire draft tonight in the 6 o'clock hour.
I'll see you on Thursday, right? We're going to get together on Thursday for a little Niners Nightly this week?
We're going to do Niners Nightly. You'll be our guest on Thursday night. We'll have 2 Niners Nightlies this week, Monday and Thursday. Tonight we'll devote to just, breaking it down and taking your calls and letting you react. Thursday we'll bring in Damon, and we'll talk a little bit more on Thursday. So have a great rest of your day. Thanks for, the one thing Damon and I know, you guys have options, you have choices. There's lots of different places that you could be for your 49er coverage. We're glad that you're here with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great one. Thanks for watching Wake Up. Wake up!